Since 1938, Superman has been, at first, an American icon, now a world icon, with countless stories and adaptations, giving a certain spin on his character and the messages he carries. With the release of James Gunn's Superman, the film has been under the eyes of some controversy, from both the political and production aspects. So if you're here for political commentary, you're probably on the wrong channel. But with James Gunn's Superman, there's still a debate towards a major question. Who is Superman? Is he a god amongst men? Is he just a guy who has powers and just wants to do good? Or is he a symbol meant to give us, viewers and readers alike, a sense of hope and justice in a world that doesn't show us that? Well, it depends on what version you're looking at and how you perceive it, and for this video I decided to look into some of the most iconic portrayals of Superman, at least the ones I'm mostly nostalgic for, starting with... What can I say about this film that hasn't been said before? Stop me if you've heard this one. This was one of the most influential movies of the time, basically what set the genre for superhero films. We all know the story. Superman is from the planet Krypton, he was sent to Earth as a baby, and when he discovers his powers, he does whatever he can to show that those with power can do good, setting an example for others. While that's typically the ideals of a Superman story, what I think people are missing from both this movie and the various others that follow it is the focus on the man and not just the super. Unless you've recently seen the film, you wouldn't see the guy in the title until halfway into the film, and that's not exactly a bad thing. Let me explain. When we first meet Clark Kent, he's just a kid trying to fit in, even trying to use his powers to show off.
How'd you get here so fast? I ran.
Believing that he should use his powers because he has them. I mean, what inexperienced superhero doesn't? But just like how Spider-Man had...
With great power comes great responsibility.
In the scene at Pa Kent's funeral, he says,
Those things I can do. All those powers. And I couldn't even save him.
which gives his calling to discover what his powers are meant for, taking his Earth Father's words into finding a greater purpose, and his Space Father's words into inspiring others, which leads him to becoming Clark Kent, mild-mannered reporter for the Daily Planet. But where's Superman? Again, we're focusing on the man, not the super. When we see Clark Kent again, he's basically what we least expect Superman to be. Clark is constantly nervous, nerdy, and everyone walks all over him, especially when Lois Lane enters the story. She's almost a foil to his daily persona. Snarky, sarcastic, almost seeing Clark with a sense of pity. And when you consider the aspects of his alter ego, you can actually notice the sense of power dynamic between them, going from...
Well,
Yeah.
you know, Clark, there are very few people left in the world who feel comfortable saying that word.
to...
How old are you?
Over 21.
Oh, I get it. You don't want anyone to know how old. Okay. And how big are you? How tall are you?
About 6'4".
Okay, let's talk about him. You waited long enough. A lot of people argue who exactly is the best portrayal of Superman. Some say Reeve, some say Roof, some say Cavill, and some are currently saying Cornsweat. And while I respect each Superman actor, you cannot deny the example that Christopher Reeve set for what was to come, especially when switching from Clark to Superman. From his stance going from a squeaky and high pitch to a more deeper and firm, it's that performance that makes Superman feel more real. With scenes such as this...
Here you go, miss.
Gee, thanks, mister. He's such a naughty cat. I always tell him not to.
Oh, well, hold on now. Let's not be too hard on Frisky, okay? You know something? We all get a little afraid of heights now and again. Well, bye-bye, Frisky. So long now. Bye.
Bye!
Make Superman someone you can look up to for hope. Someone who, despite his power, is as flawed as you and I, which is why I think this line works despite the hero he is.
Who are you?
A friend.
But besides being that nice guy superhero we all know, we do get moments where he can change his demeanor, but also will let his emotions get the best of him, especially if it means saving lives. From getting trapped by kryptonite from Lex Luthor to this scene, and yes, as an adult, I know how stupid it may look, When considering the context, again, think about the man, not the super. He is a guy who just lost the love of his life, so despite everything, wouldn't you try to prevent a tragedy before it started? But when you consider the portrayal of Superman in one of the earliest examples of the modern comic book genre, there's a lot of humanity in this portrayal, especially when it shows a hopeful yet fragile side to himself. That's what we're able to relate to. Sure, he can fly and has super strength, but I think too many people focus on that aspect, rather than his real side of being someone who chooses to help and inspire others.
This country is safe against Superman, thanks to you.
No, sir. Don't thank me, Warden. We're all part of the same team. Night.
So, listen, Cleveland, the reason I asked you out here, I've been wanting to talk to you about something. In Superman 2, what is the story with that cellophane S that Superman rips off his chest and throws at the bad guy?
Prepare to be destroyed, Superman. What was that?
Yeah, take that, you jerk.
That was a minor inconvenience.
Yeah, well, that's the idea. Slowed you down.
I'll say. Ow.
Didn't see that coming, did you?
No.
Yeah, well, you know, take that.
Now, Superman 2 has a bit of a complicated history, but why? Well, that's because there's two versions of Superman 2. The one that came out in 1980, directed by Richard Lester, and the Richard Donner cut that came out in 2006 to coincide with the release of Superman Returns. So for this, I'll mostly be going over the Richard Donner cut since it was supposed to be where the first movie left off, but I'll talk about the Lester cut later. So as I said before, it leads right after the events of the first one. After Superman throws one of Lex Luthor's nukes into space, it leads to it blowing up the Phantom Zone prison of General Zod and his group after they were imprisoned by Superman's dad, Jor-El, in the first one's prologue, soon landing on Earth, wanting to conquer it, and it's up to Superman to stop them. So how's Superman's portrayal this time? It's more or less the same, but now he's faced with the conflict of whether or not he should continue being Superman for the world or stay being Clark Kent so he can live happily with Lois. Speaking of which, let's actually talk about Lois, because it's hilarious how hard she tries to make Clark reveal that he's Superman. From drawing a picture of him on Superman, to jumping out of a fucking building, to shooting Clark, which finally gives it away.
It is you. I guess I've known this for the longest time.
You realize, of course, if you'd been wrong, Clark Kent would have been killed.
With a blank? Gotcha.
So from there, the movie goes into a parallel plot, cutting back and forth with Zod and crew slowly taking over Earth, with Lex Luthor helping them. Meanwhile, Superman and Lois getting more romantically involved, with Superman asking his father about what he can do surrounding the aspects of love, while retaining his role as Superman. Which is where we go back towards the idea on focusing on the man and not the super. I mean, this is a very realistic conflict for someone like Superman to choose between the entire world and one person. That's not an easy argument. But we all know who he picks to be with Lois, and this is the only movie that we know evidently that Superman fucked, so you know, maybe it wasn't that bad. But he does realize what it's like to be human when he gets beat up by some asshole at a rest stop, only to be reminded how much Earth needs him when he finds out that Zod has taken over the world. He goes back to get his powers from his dad's soul from the computers in the Forge of Solitude. Okay, I guess that makes sense, just don't question it. But look, Superman's back, he's here to save the day, and I love how he saves the day here, so make sure to pay attention to how he saves the day and how the people respond. So it's 3 versus 1, and Superman does exactly what you expect him to do: fight the bad guy, stop the fight when he sees the people of Metropolis are in direct danger, and what a nice guy. I'm glad every version of Superman likes to keep these ideals after this. Saves a lady and her baby from falling scaffolding, willing to sacrifice himself when Zod's minion Ursa throws a bus full of people, and when they think Superman's dead, they get up and fight for themselves. Again, that's what Superman represents: inspiring hope in others, and they know they're powerless against Zod, but they still keep going. So now I think we've reached the point where I think the film gets a little stupid in places. Superman does come back, of course, and leads them back to the Fortress of Solitude with Lois and Luthor in tow, where he goes into the chamber to remove his powers again, but actually reverses the effects to make him safe in the chamber, but the rest of the fortress is affected. Just go along with it. We're almost done. Then they just die. Yeah. So with everything that's happened, what now? Lois now knows that Superman's Clark, which puts her in potential danger. So does he just live with this reality? No, he just does the same thing from last time. Spins the Earth backwards like it never happened, and beats up the asshole from the rest stop. That was a good movie, especially when it was directly connected to the first one, it giving the continuing arc of Superman's humanity of whether or not it's worth being Superman, or should he just hang it up and be happy with Lois. But remember when I said there was 2 versions of Superman 2? Well, if you're like me, who watched these back to back, you'll see some differences. Lester's version was more of a slapstick comedic angle, while the Donner cut went for a more dramatic one. For example, this scene was in the Lester cut, while in the Donner cut, Marlon Brando was in the movie as Jor-El. Yes, they cut Marlon Brando out of Superman 2. Why? 2 reasons: cutting costs and executive meddling.
I really did it to it, didn't I? That was a hell of a shot. Does it bother you at all that we played it sort of more over here?
The budget was getting high. Brando, being the big star he was, wanted the pay he thought he deserved. Father and son producers, Alex and Ela Salkind, weren't too happy about that. They fired Donner and replaced him with director Richard Lester, and Brando with Superman's mom, played by Susanna York. Hey, that's show business. But Lester's Superman 2 pretty much ends like the Donner cut, except he does a memory wipe kiss on Lois, don't know what's more ridiculous, beats up the rest stop asshole, and does something I believe is realistic of Superman. He goes to the president to tell him that he wouldn't abandon him like he did, which gives me melancholy vibes. When you think about how he had to give up being with Lois to be the world's savior. Again, moments that make you focus on the man rather than the super.
Lex Luthor has Superman trapped. He's using kryptonite to destroy his powers.
Now you'll tell me why Superman peanut butter tastes so great. Never. So fresh roasted, so creamy, so yummy. Then its secret will be mine, all mine. Yay! Foiled again! Just wait, Superman. I'll find out.
Superman peanut butter. Its strength is its great taste.
I'm not gonna go into these, but I'll be quick. Superman 3, or should I say Richard Pryor the movie, and I guess Superman shows up. Some of the major cast of the first 2 weren't even in this movie because they were mad that Richard Donner was fired from Superman 2. So Lois is in the movie for only 11 minutes, so they had to get Superman a new love interest. We got discount Lex Luthor because Gene Hackman refused to be in this, so it's just some random millionaire who hates Superman because why the fuck not? Did I mention Richard Pryor is in the movie? What happened, guys? You had something going on here. I mean, it can't get worse, right?
Oh, don't be over-dramatic, young lady. What kind of disaster could we possibly help bring about?
Nuclear Man. Enough said. They took Superman and made it lamer. The actors clearly look like they don't give a shit, the fight scenes look like ass, and you know you fucked up when you made Christopher Reeve regret this. Next. So why am I not giving time to Superman Returns? Well, I'm not saying it's bad, but it's mainly a loose sequel to Superman 2. I'm not as nostalgic for Brandon Routh's Superman, also I was 5 years old when this movie came out. But to be brief, Superman left for 5 years. Finds out Lois met another guy, has a kid, and you'll never guess who the father is. Lex Luthor is played by... oh boy. Trying to do another terraforming the planet for some property bullshit. If you don't know, it's a consistent thing for him. So, is Superman Returns a good film? While it has good ideas and visuals, there are some flaws, such as lighting, characters, and it does get a little dull in some places, but I'd still give it a watch. If you want me to go into depth towards the films I just talked about, yeah, you get the idea.
I don't care what you do to me, Zod, but I will not let you hurt the people of Earth.
Oh, yeah?
Two can play at that game.
Fellas, let me be clear. You are causing more damage than you are preventing.
I know somebody's probably going to find something to complain about. So ever since we were told that we were getting a new Superman, there were mixed results. Some more positive to see what popular director James Gunn had in store, some hesitant, and some just plain pissed off. Particularly the Snyder fanboys. And in prepping to make this video, I decided to go back and watch 2013's Man of Steel. What's my take after not seeing it in so many years? It's an alright movie, but there are many flaws to it, especially when it comes to the idea of the Superman character. So instead of getting to the aforementioned focusing on the man and not the super, we're getting into the opposite, the super instead of the man. I mean, going from Christopher Reeve to Henry Cavill in terms of character analysis is almost surreal. It's almost night and day. No, seriously, why is this movie so dark? So if you've seen Superman 2, the plot elements are almost similar. Young Kal-El was sent away to Earth from the destruction of the planet Krypton by his parents. General Zod and his minions were sieging a coup to take over the planet, with the philosophical battle of whether those should be born with choice or programming, with General Zod being sent to the Phantom Zone, vowing to find Kal-El as revenge against his parents, Jor-El and Lara.
I will find him!
So from there, the movie does a lot of flashing back and forth between him as a child discovering his powers and him as an adult looking for the origins of his past. With the flashbacks, I believe that there is some uses of realism of how a young Clark Kent has to deal with it, with his heightened senses, him saving a bus full of classmates, and Pa Kent questionably telling Clark that maybe he should have let those kids die. Wouldn't they have questioned more why Clark was the only survivor? It's things like this that make me want to question things in Man of Steel as opposed to other Superman stories. As much as I like Clark Kent in Man of Steel discovering his powers, like the scene with his heightened senses, I honestly feel a sense of both confidence and, in a way, intimidation from Cavill's performance. And not saying Superman can't be those things, but when I think of Superman, I think of someone who wants to let people know he's just like you and I, despite the powers. Sure, in the Reeve films, we saw a young Clark Kent coming to terms with his powers. He first tries showing off, and it motivated him with Pa Kent telling him he has a greater purpose. But in Man of Steel, we get a somewhat confusing message. Pa Kent wants him to know that he has a greater purpose, but he wants Clark not to take action. When it comes to the point where he becomes Superman, I don't really know much about the man, but rather his journey of becoming the super, and we only get the mild-mannered reporter at the literal end. I know there are those about to say, but the daily life of a superhero is usually the boring part. While I can understand where that argument comes from, I do think that you can make an interesting story from the perspective of a hero not being a hero. There's a reason we like Bruce Wayne, Clark Kent, Peter Parker. There's something we can relate to. In the sense of Man of Steel, I honestly don't have much relatability. Clark Kent, at least his other identities throughout the film, is strong, chiseled as fuck. Look at that shit, man. You expect me to believe that this guy is Clark Kent, mild-mannered reporter, the same guy who stuttered every time he talked to Lois Lane? Look at that face, she wants that shit. But anyway, General Zod's plan is to terraform the planet and make a new Krypton, and it's up to Superman to stop them. Just pray he doesn't bring the fight into your direction. Alright, this movie came out when I was 12. I thought these fight scenes were fucking cool, but now that I'm in my 20s, again, going from Reeve to Cavill, it's almost surreal. Superman saves a little girl's cat from a tree in 1978, sends General Zod's ship into an already damaged metropolis in 2013. Superman stops a bus full of people in 1980. Superman simply jumps over a truck in 2013. You get the idea. Now, I'm not saying a superhero film shouldn't have destruction, that's just a given. But when it's Superman, he typically does what he can to avoid any destruction and danger. I don't think Man of Steel does that, which finally leads up to this scene. Now, I know it's considered controversial, especially when it comes to the character of Superman, but I can't agree that this is something that can be possible for Superman when there's no choice. To give Man of Steel its props, it's more, what's the right word? Less questionable. Yeah, let's go with that. Than Superman simply reversing time or kissing Lois to make her forget his identity. So, after all that, is Man of Steel a good movie? Was Henry Cavill a good or bad choice for Superman? Well, as I said before, Man of Steel is a decent film, and Henry Cavill is a fantastic actor to play Superman. But I, yes, some amateur on YouTube, think it should have been done different. This plot could have worked, but I think we should have balanced the Superman with both his struggle with humanity and his godlike powers. And yes, you can keep the destruction that was in this movie, but show him trying to keep that threat away from the city. As remember, this is the first time humanity is seeing Superman, so all they're gonna get is fear, which basically leads us to our next movie. For another day.
Try knocking. The Batman Superman Adventures, next on Kids WB.
Some of you are probably thinking, you're just doing this version of Superman out of nostalgia, aren't you? Well, yes I am. As much as I have fond memories of Reeve, Cavill, and many other Superman stories, this is how I, and probably many of you, were introduced to Superman. Created by the same crew of the critically acclaimed Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series was intended to be a mix of the vibes of both old and new Superman stories, with the 40s Fleischer cartoons being a major inspiration, but giving it the Art Deco feeling that's more associated with the famous and memorable DCAU. With 54 episodes and ensemble casts like Clancy Brown as Lex Luthor, yes, Mr. Krabs played Lex Luthor, there'd be days where you could be changing from channels 32 and 33, yes, I will die on this hill, and you could be hearing greedy and funny Clancy Brown or greedy and menacing Clancy Brown.
I don't care about the children. I just care about their parents' money.
But enough about Mr. Krabs. Why am I talking about Superman the Animated Series? Well, nostalgia aside, I was arguing whether I should even go into animated series, mostly when it came to how many episodes I should watch, which episode should I watch, and how do they connect to this video's theme of man versus super. Well, here's a list of episodes that might get you into that. But the main thing about Superman's character in the animated series is not just the fact that he's just the savior of Metropolis, but also his situation of being Krypton's last survivor, the last son of Krypton, if you may. And by that I mean that this is a Superman that tries to still have human values, but also tries to conserve what he can of his Kryptonian heritage, and it reflects based on the relationships he has with both allies and enemies. Allies such as Lois Lane, his parents, Supergirl, and many more represent his human attributes, like the episode The Late Mr. Kent, where Clark Kent is seemingly killed for trying to clear a man's name for a murder, and it comes to the idea of whether he should just be Superman for the rest of his life.
But I am Clark. I need to be Clark. I'd go crazy if I had to be Superman all the time.
While other Superman stories have gone ways to differentiate both Clark Kent and Superman, I've always felt that the way he's written here was based on having the best of both worlds. Clark was able to keep a reserved level of confidence that he shows as Superman, having a fun rivalry with Lois, able to annoy Lex Luthor, while Superman has his reserved humanism that you typically get from Clark Kent. Many characters along the way are usually a test for him, especially his villains, notably Lex Luthor. We all know Lex Luthor as the obsessive, rage-baiting douchebag who hates Superman. This show is one of the biggest examples. From spying on him, making Bizarro, making a deal with the Joker, and even spending $75 million on a fake campaign, I'm starting to get this idea that he doesn't like Superman. But why? He's Superman. Can he just kick his ass and throw him in jail? Well, it's all about power. Just like we know Lex can't punch Superman, at least without kryptonite, Superman can't hurt Lex directly. Sure, Superman can destroy robots and other things Luthor throws at him, but if he hurts Luthor, he's only hurting himself, giving something the public to fear, which unfortunately happens thanks to Darkseid. Now, outside of nostalgia, don't let the fact that this is a cartoon stop you from watching this version of Superman. There's a lot you can take from this that I felt was a good combo of both past Superman stories and the stories that were yet to come. And if you do watch it, come back to me and tell me how you feel about it, as before we make our leave, we have one more Superman to talk about. wasn't planning on making a Superman video. However, as this new Superman was getting close to its release, there was so much divide and debate towards David Corenswet's portrayal of the Man of Steel. Whether it be this isn't how Superman should act, this isn't how Superman should use his powers, or for those more politically knowledgeable, this Superman is woke, this new Superman is anti-American, and as someone who's known Superman since childhood, it wasn't the powers or the political messages that got my interest when I first saw the trailer, it was the idea of hope. I'm in Gen Z, and lately for people in my generation, things haven't looked so optimistic for the future. There's a lot of ideological divide, opportunities for the future seem fleeting, etc. But as the movie got closer, I wanted to give this Superman a chance, and on release day, I went to see James Gunn's Superman. And I thought it was what I think Superman should be. A guy who just wants to do the right thing and sets examples for others, despite how the world is around him. Now, I don't think it's the perfect Superman movie. It does have its flaws, like the use of pocket dimensions, a few jokes that run a bit long, and little things that's honestly based on personal preference. But when you consider both Corenswet's performance and the film's writing, there's a sense of true love and passion for the Superman character. This is a Superman that wants to do the right thing. A Superman that doesn't let his heritage define him. A Superman that makes people want to help others, whether he's there or not. Even small things like his costume make a big difference. When James Gunn was discussing the costume design, he was close to getting rid of the trousers, similar to Henry Cavill, as he thought they were silly. But Corenswet said keep it, as that's the point. Superman doesn't have to be intimidating. He wants you to know that he's as flawed as everyone else. Now, compared to the others, Clark Kent isn't as present in 2025, and that's because this takes place 3 years into his run as Superman, and that makes sense as we generally know who Superman is, but that shows a whole new perspective. Rather than the man over the super, I saw something within the lines of the man within the super. Sure, this is a guy with godlike powers, but Corenswet's portrayal of Superman, at least in my perspective, makes you say, I felt that. When comparing this Superman to the others we've covered in this video, I've mentioned how previous incarnations managed to differentiate both Clark Kent and Superman. 2025's made me see them as one and the same. While he can save the day, he's having a rocky relationship with Lois. While he's making sure citizens are safe, he's not exactly the perfect dog caretaker. While he's having a battle of wits with Lex Luthor, he's losing his temper when he's reminded of #supershit. He's not perfect, and despite his abilities, he doesn't need to be. There's a short monologue towards the climax of the film where Superman tells Luthor that despite his alien origins, he's someone capable of love, fear, and despite his uncertainties, he tries to manage to make the best decisions he can, and that really spoke to me. We don't need the powers or the near invincibility to prove ourselves. We just need to make the right choices, and go at life one bit at a time. And it's things like that that make me say, this is one of the best portrayals of Superman so far. Sure, you can say it's not as epic or cinematic as Henry Cavill. Sure, you can say it's a Superman that's too woke and anti-American. You can even say that this isn't how Superman should act. But if you look past all that, the best way you can portray Superman is not a perfect being with powers, but, like all of us, he's just someone trying to do their best with the world around us. So now we're back to our original question. Who is Superman? Well, there's no clear answer. There's countless adaptations, comics, movies, TV shows for a clear response, but if I had to narrow it down, Superman isn't simply truth, justice, and the American way, not just the symbol of hope we know him as, but rather he's someone that gives the message that one person, through their actions, can go a long way no matter what the situation is. Thanks for watching.